Today I have been contemplating what it means to follow the yes. This is one of my favorite subjects, and for many of you who have been following me and any number of other teachers who speak to this subject, you've probably heard many times how important it is to follow that feeling of hell yes inside. What I've come to find as a result of working with so many of you from all across the world is that many of us begin this effort because of some great big decision that needs to be made. We recognize that what we're hearing here affects us on a fundamental level, on the level of our decision making. And so instantly we want to utilize it in sensing toward some big important thing in our lives, whether that's where to live or who to date or marry or where to go to school or what to do with our lives. We're seeking to apply this on a large scale. And it strikes me today, as I'm sitting here in the bright sun of this fresh new morning, it strikes me that we are attempting in many cases to apply a skill that we have not mastered. We're attempting to apply on a large scale a skill that we have not mastered on the small scale. And this is extremely significant. When you kind of take a step back, when you zoom out a moment, you realize that our lives are the result of continual decision making. Every single moment that we meet is the effect of a decision that we made just one moment before. This is to say that our ordinary lives afford us the opportunity to develop something moment by moment by moment on the small scale, in order that when we arrive at these large decisions, we have developed a skill or a capacity that we can make use of in that context. This is what we often miss. We forget that we are in this flow of existence, that we are living from one moment to the next, and that act of living is a continual act of decision making. We trick ourselves into thinking that life just kind of happens until we arrive at this mile marker, at this big moment where we need to make some great decision. But all along the way, we're making decisions. If we could learn simply to utilize the opportunity that every single moment of our ordinary lives, not so ordinary after all, every single moment of our ordinary lives truly is, we would be able to integrate that practice into the moment by moment flow of our everyday experience, which, by the way, would massively accelerate our capacity to learn and to develop that same skill. As long as we attempt to apply something that feels totally new and that is totally undeveloped on a large scale, we will probably fail. We will probably succeed only in discouraging ourselves, and we've all felt that, haven't we? What I am recording this today in order to say is that we each need to learn how to practice on the small scale before we apply on the large scale. And when we're speaking to the subject of decision making, we could not be on a more fundamental level of our human experience. What I'm talking about here is my favorite subject to discuss because it is so practically relevant for every single living human being in the world. There is nothing more important that we could be discussing. This is also why the Forgotten Sense program seeks to serve this exact question. The Forgotten Sense puts us in touch with a resource, an inherent human resource, a resource that is common to every single human being anywhere in the world at any age, no matter what. When we come into contact with that resource, we become capable of effective decision making, but only if we also practice what we've learned. That practice must be developed on the small scale before it can be made good use of on the large scale. Many of us are carrying an inner sense of some great, special, and personal purpose. We know that we are here on purpose. We know that we are being called to something. We know that that includes where we live. It includes who we share our time with. It includes what we are doing. And so we've hyper-focused on these large-scale questions. And in doing so, we've driven ourselves nuts, have we not? We've turned ourselves inside out like pretzels in our attempts to get it right. And I think that what we're missing is simply understanding on the one hand and practice on the other. First, we need to know how to make effective decisions. And then we need to We need to be willing to use what we have learned on the small scale, moment by moment by moment. We are, every one of us, navigating eternity itself by means of simple, ordinary, everyday steps, by means of moment by moment decision making. This is not insignificant. When I saw this today, just now, I knew I would record this video for you. And I knew that the reason for recording this video would be to invite you to train with me. Practice with me. Train on the small scale. Work with me. Work with me to utilize the ordinary factors of your everyday life in order to develop a skill which you can apply on every level of your experience from now on. Can you see why this would be so important? Can you see how very rich your everyday life is with opportunity to develop this skill, to master this? Can you see how integrating this practice into your everyday life massively accelerates your capacity to develop it? The question should not be, what am I here to do with my life, or where should I live? The question should be, following this recording, watching this video, the moment you leave this video, what would you like to do? How do you follow the yes from one moment to the next? When you've finished watching this video, what would you like to do next? Is it in fact true that you would like to continue scrolling through whatever feed you may have found this on? Or do you feel your heart flushing open in response to something else? Perhaps a book to read, or perhaps it's time to take a shower or go for a walk, or move into conversation on the inspiration of what you've gathered from this video. Do you have the ability to feel forward from this moment to the next one, and from that moment to the one that follows it? This is what matters most. If we can develop this skill in the day-to-day, we can utilize it on the grand scale. In fact, we'll find that it naturally employs itself on our behalf. We'll find that once we've mastered this skill, we come into contact with a version of intelligence that transcends our intellectual, logical understanding. There is a natural logic which is far wiser than the best of our intellectual calculations. We can come into contact with that, we can utilize it, and when we come into contact with it, it naturally flows through us. It's almost as if it utilizes itself, and then we become the medium of that intelligence. What I'm trying to tell you is that once you've developed this skill, the act of following the feeling, of sensing your way forward, of finding and honoring that yes, that act becomes natural. Those decisions make themselves. The only reason this is so hard for us is because we've been trained in the opposite direction. And in order to reclaim the power that is ours, we must first retrain ourselves in the proper or appropriate direction. This is something we do not when we arrive at that moment of large decision making, that moment of dire need. It's something that we do right now, and right now, and right now. It's something that we do moment by moment by moment. And so what would you like to do next? Would you enjoy eating something? Would you like to take a few deep breaths and feel your heart expand into the day? What is it? Would you like to reach out to me and say, let's work together, whatever it takes? What I want is to utilize the content of our everyday lives to expand the capacity that we have to meet the miracle of our ordinary lives, to realize that there is nothing ordinary at all in all of life, to realize that every one of us is extraordinary, magnificent, a miracle ourselves, and that we are called to encounter life as such. We are called to enjoy the gift of life that we've been given. That is what I'm here to help us do. It's what I've been doing every single moment of my day and of my life for a very long time. And it is what I am finally qualified to help you do as well.